Kate Young.
Tyler Lake, and this is Nice Work.
Tyler, do you ever wish you were a product designer?
Oh yeah, Kate, I think we've talked about this, and it is definitely one of my dream jobs.
Me too. I always wanted to design small living spaces, like camper-type setups. Not RVs exactly. I'm thinking high-quality materials, aesthetically pleasing, but highly functional. Exactly what you need, nothing more.
That sounds pretty awesome, Kate, but have you ever thought about what comes next? My guest this week, Deborah Pearson, talks with me about turning those ideas into products that you can actually go out and buy.
And Alex talked with a high school theater director who's pushing students into challenging, perhaps even absurd territory.
Then we change the pace a bit and talk about slow things.
Yeah, intentionally slowing down.
On Nice Work, just ahead.
Stay with us.
This is Nice Work. I'm Tyler Lake. I've heard tell of these almost mythic households that are full of music, walls heavy with art, raucous with lively conversation of artists, composers, playwrights, and a broad spectrum of creative types. The kind of household that always seems to foster artists, actors, and musicians. I've heard tell of those types of households, but I've never actually encountered one. I think, like a lot of us, my first run-in with art was somewhere on the fuzzy, wonky line where art and commerce make frequent, uncomfortable bedfellows. My love of art, of sculpture, of graphic design, even my notion of things like proportion, form, and beauty, are all jumbled up with my fascination with the products around me. Sneakers, cars, furniture, consumer electronics, cereal boxes, and on and on. These things shaped my aesthetic sensibilities well before Cezanne, the Bauhaus, and Virgil Abloh. These things, I'm convinced, are art objects, or at least they can be. But there's one important distinction. These products are more than just an idea sketched out by a designer in a temperature-inappropriate scarf and thick-rimmed pop-of-color glasses. They are real-world objects, made in dizzying quantities, and shaped by the choices of so many people in the chain between the designer and the consumer. I talked to one of the most important people in that long chain of product development. Deborah Pearson is a senior lecturer in merchandising and the co-director of the Center for Innovative Merchandising at the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design at Indiana University. She has guided countless products from the wilderness of good ideas all the way through to the comfortable domesticity of a retail space. And as you will hear later, it's a long and involved process, one that affects all of us in one way or another, whether we like it or not. Pearson and I talked about the product development cycle, sustainable environmental and labor practices, market trends, and teaching all these things to a new generation of product developers. When we spoke last time, you pointed out that you work in product development, not product design.
That is correct.
And I get the impression that's something that you have to explain to people often. So how do you explain that difference?
I'm not a designer. I'm an implementer. So I take the designs that others create and I work to bring them to life. So I do all the behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to make that idea, that design come to life. I have been in the retail industry for, unfortunately, a few decades, a couple of those, in product development. So over 28 years in actual product development. And I started out my career with a company called May Department Stores, which is no longer in existence. It was bought by Macy's, which everybody will know that name.
Yep.
And even a little bit before that, I was with Sears Holdings Group, when Sears Holdings Group was a raving business. So if you think about what those companies are, they were a conglomerate of a number of stores. Mm-hmm. So we did over 900 stores at the May Company from north, south, east, and west. Macy's, same thing, over 1,000 stores at that time. So every single one of those store companies has private label brands, product that can only be bought in their stores. And that's what I did for 28 years.
Kind of give me the process of coming to one of these designed objects and getting it through what I'm sure is a lot of processes to get it onto the shelf. Kind of talk me through that process a little bit.
Well, it all starts with an idea. And every single thing that a customer, a consumer comes in contact with had to start with an idea. Whether you're wearing it on your body, whether you're enjoying the sound of it, the visualization of it, or you're consuming it for digestive purposes, everything starts with an idea. And that idea then populates into that design. And that design is formulated to have something unique about it. And once that unique idea is populated into a unique design, then we go through that long, arduous process. And we start with things like a tech pack, just telling us what that is. How do you construct what that design is? And how do you put it together? What materials do you need in order to put that together? And that becomes our source of information that we disseminate amongst our internal teams and our external teams to get that product made.
It's kind of like a blueprint.
Yeah,
but
exactly. If you think about a floor plan or a house plan, and you see your elevation and you see this view down, that's kind of a flat plan.
Yeah.
That's kind of what a spec pack is. So we do all dimension within that. And some of the really cool things with technology today is that we can do 3D imaging and things like that. So we can actually see a lot more about the product before we even put it into production.
Right.
So from the spec pack, we do all of the negotiations. So we source this product and find where we're going to have it manufactured. Might be in the United States and it might not, depending upon where the expertise is for that product.
Sure.
We cost it out. And we determine what the retail price is based off of what the market can bear, as well as what the competition will tell us that we need to price it at, so that we know that our consumers will gravitate toward that product. And then once we set all of those parameters, we have to go into the production of it. And once we go into the production of it, we also have to think about the testing requirements and meeting all those legislative laws that are required for us. There's all kinds of regulations that we have to deal with. So we have to make certain that we're complying with all those rules, regulations, and laws. Once we get that established, and we've done all the testing and the auditing to prove that, then we actually have to produce the product to the capacity that we need. And then once it's produced, we have to think about logistically how we're going to move it from that manufacturing facility to get it to the distribution center, ultimately to the retail outlet, and then to the consumer. So there's a lot of things in between that we didn't even talk about, but a lot of things with analysis and trend forecasting and all of those analytics that are so important. And we also have to know about the customer. We have to know about the customer from their demographic side and their psychographic. How do they shop? How do they purchase? So there's a lot that goes into it.
I mean, it's also about like sourcing materials too,
right?
Oh,
sure. Absolutely.
So it just seems like there are so many like factors at play. Getting one thing wrong can really make it catastrophically bad, but also getting that one thing right is maybe why it's successful as a product anyway.
When we create products, you've seen or heard this before, that we create these feelings for this product. They become part of us. They become our babies, so to speak. And there's a number of them that I'm extremely proud of. Labels that I've developed, labels that I've worked on. Some of the ones that you might know would be Karen Scott or INC from a Macy's point of view.
It just goes to show how fickle this industry can be, that Karen Scott has been phased out. Meanwhile, INC is still a mainstay Macy's brand.
But even Kenmore, when Kenmore was big, and Craftsman Tools, when it was big, with Sears Holdings Corporation. So it's not so much about the actual brand name as much as the process itself. And you want it to go through the process seamlessly, which means that you have to have this art of communication with your internal teams and your external teams to make it happen. And I would say some of my proudest work is when everybody that's engaged in that process is on the same page, that they're moving toward that common goal. And that common goal for everyone involved is to get that product produced and in the consumer's hands. So I think that, rather than narrowing it down to one thing, it's really understanding how can we always continue to improve the process? How can we always continue to be better at what we do and evaluate the process every single time that we do it to find where those idiosyncrasies that happen that might be something that can be beneficial or something that might have hindered it, and to make those adjustments necessary.
We have a really elastic notion of what a house brand is now.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was a kid, it was probably something like the Black Label brand at a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't thought about like Craftsman being an in-house brand for Sears.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of give me the scope of what like an in-house brand actually is and can be in this sort of very varied marketplace.
Well, there's two different kinds of private label brands. And the first one is a store brand. So, for example, Gap is a store brand.
Okay,
Old
right.
Navy is a store brand because every single thing that's in their store bears that name. But then there's other names like Home Essentials, that can only be found at a certain retailer. Threshold, for example, is just a Target brand.
Mm-hmm.
Target alone has over 45 private label brands, and I don't think you as a consumer would realize that. But all of those brands stand for something and service a specific demographic and psychographic of their customer. And each of our brands that we put into play doesn't necessarily have to just represent that product and is only in that product category. It can expand across multiple product categories. It could be in ready to wear and it goes into accessories, that goes into shoes, that goes into, other categories. A lot of it has to do with the brand itself and what is the brand known for. So once you understand what the foundational needs are of that consumer that's consuming that type of product or that brand, you can expand on that. One of the ways in which we develop product is not a scientific approach. We look at brands and we look at ideas and we formulate those to see if they're going to match and marry.
So it does kind of seem like that it works, that you can kind of engage the nostalgia of an older generation to introduce a much younger generation to a new or an updated or a similar product. I think, Lego?
Yeah, exactly. Where did Legos come from?
Denmark?
Yeah, well, yes, but where did the idea come from? Wooden blocks.
Sure, right.
Okay, so something that didn't snap together, but now we put it into a new medium, a new material. We add some more features, benefits to it. We lower the price. We improve the production capabilities of that. And suddenly we have this explosive toy product.
The more I talked with Pearson, and she was not trying in any way to impress this idea upon me, but as we talked, it became obvious. When the designer wants a look or an effect or a texture, they might make that decision. But it's people like Pearson who have to figure out how to make all that happen on an industrial scale.
Let's take denim.
Great.
Okay, because it's just a core product that most consumers have in their wardrobe.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the brand is, but think about denim.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that fabric first. Now you can have denim that weighs differently, the thickness of the fabric. Well, it's all a denim weave. It's a canvas weave, right? And it has a dye process on it that is going to enrich it to that blue denim color. But now think about that denim product and how we have fashioned it differently. Not only do we alter the weight of the fabric, but we alter the dyeing process of that fabric to make it lighter or darker. And then we do things like putting whiskers on it, where it looks like it's kind of faded or whatever. And then maybe we even rip it by sanding it and doing some things where we destruct it. We also think about denim in kind of different ways, the fit of denim. You have Levi that has, I don't even know how many fits.
So many.
Right?
Yes.
But each one of them goes to a specific customer. So they have a waist measurement, they have a length measurement in their assortment. But not all denim companies might have that breadth of an assortment. But they have an assortment that really caters to a broader audience. Right?
Yeah.
And fashion changes in denim. Your denim jeans that you wore 5 years ago might not quite be in style today.
A little snug, maybe.
Right. Maybe a little snug, but, what about the color of them?
Yeah.
What about the finish of them? Not only just the fit. So, we go through different eras of fashion where baggy jeans are in, slim cut jeans are in, flare legs are in, straight legs are in. So just denim in itself is fascinating.
Right.
Denim is not a particularly sustainable process of manufacturing. We, in the olden days, used to have a large water consumption when we sandblasted the jeans. But we've come up with alternative methods to achieve that finish or that look without having so much destruction to the environment. So where we are not still what I would call the most sustainable process for denim, it's gotten better as time has gone by. So I look at denim as an opportunity in a number of different ways. What kind of dyes are we using? Can we use more plant-based dyes?
Right.
To make it a little bit more sustainable? So there's all kinds of things when my mind goes all over the place, to be very honest with you, when it comes to some of those larger categories of products that are so important to our population,
Right.
that we have to think beyond. The customer tells you what they want, but they don't know necessarily how we're going to get them the product that they want.
Right.
So how can we do that most efficiently, most time efficient, but also production efficient?
Is your role doing a lot of that coordinating between suppliers, producers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, and marketers? So I'm just wondering, what is the mix? As a product goes to market, how much of each of those sort of irons do you have to tend?
Lots.
Yeah.
And in product development, we work in a team environment whenever we're in retail or wholesale. It's not just the product developer doing it, right? It's a lot of different people. You do have that design team, but you also might have a fabric expert within that design team and a technical designer that's going to actually give you the proper measurements and the layout and figure out how to cut it in the mass production. You're going to have colorists, that will help you determine the color standards that are in fashion today, and also how can we get that color dyed in the industry. So internally, just working in design, there's a number of different functions and specialities that team would have. But beyond design, we also have to think about how are we going to bring it to market. So we work with the marketing team. What's the packaging look like? We have to start with the brand and what the brand identity is. And then that brand identity being brought forward into a number of different packaging needs, because what we need to package on a denim product is not going to be the same as what we'd put on a leather product, for example. So we have to think about, we're working with the design team and the tech team, and we're working with the marketing team to help us with that, package and the package layout. But then we're also working with the global sourcing team to find where we're going to manufacture this. Where's the best place to do that? We also have to work with our finance team because we got to have the money to do it. And we're going to work with our merchants that are actually going to purchase this product and put it into distribution to the stores. So we have to think about the quantity that they're going to buy and when they're going to buy it, so the timing of it. And they're going to have a cost that they're going to give us as a model. So can we hit that cost? Then we also have to think even beyond that to the operations side of it. How's it going to be set up in the stores? So how will it be visually displayed? And how are we going to take the marketing aspect with the visual aspect in the store to really get that message across to the consumer? And I haven't mentioned everything that's out there, but think about all of the departments in a company. In product development, you're going to touch all of them. I am not a logistics expert, but I know when I see a good logistics plan,
Yeah.
right? So I work with a logistics team to make certain that they're going to be able to pick it up when I need them to pick it up, and that it's going to hit my DC when it needs to hit the DC.
DC is?
Distribution center.
Got it, right.
So all of that is something that we deal with when we're talking about product development. So we talk about it starting with the idea and going clear to the consumer purchasing it. And everything in between, we have to think about. We're not in charge of all that, but we have to work alongside with our other teammates to make it happen. Now that's internally. And we have to think about externally, the manufacturer. What is their team of people in that manufacturing site? Do they have the equipment that's necessary? Do they have the time in which we want it to be produced? Can they schedule us during that time? So there's even that outside that we have to communicate with and constantly be involved with. But I'm going to even take it back further. When we have that idea, we have to have some way in which to research that idea to see if it's going to be valid or not. And so we have to solicit information. The trend services out there like WGSN.
WGSN, by the way, is an international trend forecasting company. They've kind of set the standard for trend analysis, and just like product developers, WGSN is responsible for the way the world around us looks, tastes, and feels.
Articles that are coming out about what consumers are saying about the marketplace. Okay. So we have to take all those analytics and even apply them to that initial idea to see, okay, do we need to modify that idea in some way for it to be more successful? So even though I jumped around, it's a plethora of people that are engaged in this process. And in product development, we're just kind of like the ones that help to keep it all together.
Given how complex our global trade networks are and how many contractors and subcontractors can be involved in the production of any single item, how can you ensure that good labor sustainability practices and environmental practices are followed all the way down the chain? That feels like a really daunting task.
It is. Let's be honest that, there are some companies that do it better than others. And I would say you have to, again, understand that it's an art of communication and having all the processes be talked through internally and externally. So when you're working with a manufacturer that's going to potentially manufacture your goods, you have to go in and actually survey them, audit them to make certain that what they say they're going to do is what they're actually doing. You have to go into the basement of something and look at, from the bottom up to find out, do they have that ethical labor? Yes, on paper, they're telling you they pay them this and they pay them that. But, talk to the workers. Are they happy? Don't take it for face value from some upper echelon within the management of that company. Actually get down into the actual company roots and find out. And then who are their suppliers?
Right.
Do the research on those suppliers. Actually have a meeting with those suppliers. When you're in global sourcing, which is the other arm, and oftentimes blended with product development as one department, it's important for you to dig deep and to know that what you think you're getting in quality of labor and sustainability practices, that it's real. Go to the actual manufacturing sites. Be there. Have an auditor on site. Always checking and always having those balances in place to make certain that to the best of your ability, you're being very transparent and that you're being very ethical and that you're following the rules.
I just have a list of things that that was successful, and I don't know that was successful because it was a stellar product.
Gotcha.
The first one I'm just going to say is the Stanley mug.
Yeah, love it.
Love it. Why did it work? Stanley has made mugs for a long time. Why did they blow up, and why do you think they blew up? Why do you think it worked?
Well, I think that they've always had the insulated cup. Okay. I mean, I remember my dad when I was a kid having a Stanley thermos.
The big green ones.
Big one with that silver cap on it. And, he took it hunting and fishing and to his job every day. They really do their research. And what I like about Stanley is that they have grown multiple categories within their business, but they've never stepped outside of who they are, right? They've never tried to be somebody that they're not. And because of that, they've seen a surge in these, what I call, fancy, trend right with the color and all that and the shape. And Stanley was doing some of that before. And I think what made Stanley successful most recently was some of the limited drops that they did. They created this sense of urgency to their consumers. That pink mug that came out a few years ago during Mother's Day, it sold out right away because they had limited editions. So then they said, okay, you listen to me this time. So now they do these drops and people are almost collecting them. But it all started with the foundation of them and the quality of product that they've done that's really transformed this new generation into understanding who they are. They've taken something that's really old, right? And they continue to evolve it. And they've hit the demographic, they've hit the consumer today, that new customer, with the way that they shop. And because they've transitioned themselves to really focus on that, they've really done a nice job in growing some of that business.
That also reminds me of Carhartt.
Uh-huh.
They have their core work brand, but then they have like their work in progress, like fancy line.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't have just come out with a fancy line of workwear if they weren't an established brand that everybody knew was durable and reliable.
Absolutely. I mean, they started out as basically a hunting, outdoor working apparel, and they were doing it for quality and warmth and functionality. And now, because of how they've characterized that, they've added a lot of feature benefits and they've added a lot of design into it that the younger generation, if you will, two cohort groups before now, really started to recognize, because they went back to, 15, 20 years ago, people started stepping back from, and they wanted to go back to nature. And so Carhartt had this perfect opportunity to really bring on a whole new set of customers. And they've capitalized on that. But they also have taken their distribution model. Think about where they used to be just in hunting and sporting
Right.
workwear companies, right? Now you can find them in other places, right?
You can find them in high-end places.
Yes.
In Detroit, I went to a Carhartt boutique. It was
Yeah,
purely...
they have their own stores.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they have distribution models where Carhartt is sold in department stores now. They're sold in a Menards.
Yeah. I saw it at Lowe's.
Exactly.
I saw it at Lowe's
Which
this
would
morning.
make sense.
Yeah,
that would
it's
be
the right audience.
really true off of what they are. But you can buy it in REI,
Right.
which is, again, true to who they were and are. But when they've expanded into other types of companies, that other kinds of retail establishments, that's where, again, they became reliant on that newer cohort groups.
New Balance could be an example,
Mm-hmm.
but the return of the dad shoe, somehow they found purchase again. And I'm amazed that you can do that without having to change. You didn't design a new product. You did everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, in some ways, yes, I agree with you. In some ways, I don't. And what I mean by the don't side is that they've added like one little feature to it, okay? Like, you can step into the shoe and it doesn't collapse on the heel any longer. Because of that, and because, again, the population of people that want the ease and comfort, it's become popular again. We went through this thing as a nation, as a world, called COVID, okay? And that really did level set some of our consumers about the importance of comfort and fit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I bet.
We have not, as consumers, let go of that. So whenever we can have companies, dad shoes, that come back into the market with that one new caveat of feature that is more comfortable, or it fits easier, or it's easier, to wear, good for us. Good for us, because we're staying focused again to what the consumer's telling us they want. And I don't see in the near future that comfort and fit aren't going to be of value to the consumer.
What's the joy that you get from it? How do you tell your students to find joy in this work?
It's all about perspective, and it's all about how we view things. Spend time going out and not shopping, per se, but watching. Do a little research about the industry. Where do you have the interest, and where can you make a difference? You can find a passion within the plethora of opportunity that lies there. If you're into design, great. But if you're not in design, great. Because you can find something that will spark you and drive you to always want to perform at the highest level, and to think forward and to think beyond today. What can you do in the long term? I'm very proud of what I've done for 30 years. I'm proud of being now a teacher, to teach this next generation, because this generation is our future. You can't learn everything out of a textbook, per se, right? You got to get out and do field work. So, that student that's on the fence, get a internship, work in the field.
You'll know pretty quick.
Exactly. You'll definitely know if you like it, you don't like it, or you don't like this aspect. You don't want to do that. You want to do this. I think, again, just getting out there and seeing what there is, what will drive them.
That was Deborah Pearson, co-director of the Center for Innovative Merchandising at the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design. And the next time you go shopping for a pair of jeans, or if you're like me, find yourself admiring the shape and materials of an electric kettle or a phone or your favorite mug or whatever it is, take a quick pause with me and think about how it got there and all the people who helped make that happen. This is Nice Work. I'm Tyler Lake.
This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers. So there's this question I've been thinking about more since we started Nice Work. How much should you challenge your audience? Bloomington has plenty of visual and studio art that'll get you thinking, from the Eiffel downtown to the Eskenazi and Grunwald galleries on campus. There's also music that pushes boundaries, from the Back Door and the Blockhouse to the Jacobs New Music Ensemble. I've encountered less thought-provoking theater, although not none. The Jewish Theater of Bloomington did a production of 4,000 Miles a few months before Nice Work launched. It was one example of a play that was both well-produced and left me thinking. It wasn't avant-garde, but, experimentation is only one way of being thought-provoking, and it's honestly no guarantee. Another place I've seen thought-provoking theater in the past year? Bloomington High School North. They did an impressive production of the new-ish musical Hadestown in the spring of 2025, and then that fall they put on Eugene Ionesco's Rhinoceros. Rhinoceros is not the first absurdist play, but it was one of the most influential. It was written in 1959, and it's as weird as ever. So I went over to the high school to talk with their new theater director, Noel Kuntz, about why he had his students put on a play a lot of theater majors don't even read until grad school. Here's our conversation.
I am Noel Patrick Kuntz. I am the theater teacher and program director at Bloomington North High School.
Can you say where we are?
Yeah, we are in the boys' dressing room in the Black Box Theater and at North High School.
All right, cool. You chose to do Ionesco's Rhinoceros, which is one of the, I think, founding absurdist plays. Mm-hmm. And it's intellectually challenging and aesthetically challenging in the sense that there's a nonsense aspect to it. It sounds like you're choosing repertoire that is maybe more challenging than we might see a different theater teacher choosing.
Yeah, North Theater especially has had a long tradition of doing shows that were challenging in that way, whether it was political content or very real thematic issues and very grown-up shows. That was always the case of North Theater for many, many years. It just had a long history of doing really, really challenging things, challenging content, challenging thematically, challenging for singers. We spend a lot of time with our dramaturg who does some research around this so that they understand the framework for what we're doing and what that all means. And students really respond well to it, where they're like, this was last year, we've not done a really serious show in a while, like a show that felt grown up. And I get like when you're working with young people, to think that they want to continue doing theater for kids, and there's nothing wrong with that, certainly, but they're a little beyond that, and they're dealing with things that are real and dealing with life in a way that I don't think that serves them very well. And I also think for audiences, and yes, I do think about who comes from the greater community and from our school community, and there has to be something for them too, like to to wrap their heads around and to engage in that way. And I think that that's really, really important. And I think that there are many shows that are just fun and everyone in the audience adores and sings along and all those other things. And there's a place for that too. I want them to do things that maybe that they don't know, and maybe that they can engage with it in a certain way, and they can't fall back on the fact that they already know all those songs, and that everyone else does too, and so that you can find other stories and other ways of telling those stories, so then it becomes that whole journey that you take together that no one else might know it either.
So tell me about that experience. Let's dig into it a little bit with Rhinoceros.
Yeah.
Because again, that's a challenging story just to literally understand.
That's the thing. Students didn't know what that was. Anyone who studies theater in any real sense, they all know it. They probably read it in graduate school. That's usually when that happens.
Right. Graduate school, not high school.
Not high school. So essentially, Rhinoceros is a play in which the small town in France where the whole entire town transforms into rhinoceroses except one person. And he laments at all the things that he's missing out on and how alienated he is because he cannot become a rhinoceros, and he doesn't understand why. But the way that the play works is, it just is. Everyone transforms into a rhinoceros for their own reasons. And it was important to me because that play is often cited as a very anti-fascist play. Mm-hmm. It was Ionesco, who was Romanian. It was his response to the fascist government in Romania. But I thought that was too simple because people transform mostly because they were not brave enough to be individuals. Because they had to follow and they couldn't be individualistic in any way, so they wanted to find the herd. They wanted to find that group to join, a group that was unified, that had solidarity. And that's the only way he could explain why people could transform, because it was perfectly natural to do that, except one person who couldn't bring himself to not be himself. And then he's left all alone.
And I think, as someone who had heard of it, but hadn't studied theater, and so I didn't actually know the story until I saw your production of it, which I really enjoyed.
Thank you.
And I thought it was I really enjoyed the production. I thought the students were great. In seeing it, one of the things that struck me about the main character, is he's not particularly heroic. I mean, there's different ways of reading him, I guess. Mm-hmm. But, it's not like he's, at least the way I kind of experienced it, was like he's making a strong stand or taking a stance. It's more, if I remember correctly, he's kind of a loser at the beginning or something, or maybe he's a little bit out of it or something.
Yeah, he's disheveled. And it's so French in that way too, even though it's like this ennui, right? This boredom of life but the laundry is so expensive, he says. That's why I wear dirty shirts, even though he has a good job. And just, I don't know what else to do. I'm so bored that I drink because I don't have anything else to do. And he's just a mess all the time.
Right. And so he's not, he's not heroic. Yeah. And I think that makes the show more ambiguous. Mm. And, it's more of an intellectual quandary. What do we do with this person? What do we do with this situation?
I have this saying that I say to students, and they are so over it every time. They just roll their eyes. Yeah, you told us, Koontz, come on. Is our job isn't to tell people what to think. Our job is only to make them think. Mm-hmm. And the same goes for feeling. Our job isn't to tell people how to think or feel. It's only to make them think and feel something. And if it doesn't do that, then it's propaganda, and that's not the business that we're in. Just make them think and feel something. Let them decide what that is. Let them decide what rhinoceros is. What does turning into a rhinoceros really mean? Does it matter? Some people got really granular. Is a one horn this political party and two horns this one? I'm like, oh, that's interesting that you say that. Or maybe it's just the fact that you have two horns, because there's a whole thing about an African or Asian rhinoceros, one or two horns. Right. Yeah, and it's like, ultimately it doesn't really matter because it's ridiculous that people are turning into rhinos anyway. So I do think they got all that. They really felt that they were saying something important. And I think it was harder for them not to know what that was that they were saying all the time. And I said, I totally get that. And that is when you lean into the relationships between those characters in what they are saying to each other. And it only has to have meaning in those moments in between the characters there. That's where it really matters. And ultimately, the audience understands that. And that's what's important, that they get that for themselves.
That was Noel Kuntz, theater director at Bloomington High School North. Their upcoming show is God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. It's a musical, and yes, it's based on the Kurt Vonnegut novel. That runs April 17th through April 19th at Bloomington High School North. For Nice Work, I'm Alex Chambers. This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers. On a weekend afternoon in late winter, the hosts of Nice Work, that's me and Kate Young and Tyler Lake, we decided to go to the Sculpture Trails Outdoor Museum in Greene County. The trip didn't quite turn out as we planned. Tyler drove to Kate's house before they came to get me.
All right, Kate,
Oh, hey, Tyler.
you got a lot of wood here.
Yeah, I do. I know we're getting ready to go over to Alex's, and I'm excited about that, but can I just do a couple more loads of this? Because
Yeah. So how much wood do you go through?
I don't know. I guess this is our first year, so we're still finding out, but I guess it's going to be about 3 ricks, which is about a cord.
Man, that's not math I know. Gonna go into business selling Kate's Rick Racks?
Yeah. So yeah, I've got this rack that's next to our porch, and I like to keep wood on there. So then we have more wood in the back because all of it didn't fit on this rack. And so we have some in the back, and we've, got a lot of moving to do. Wheelbarrow.
Really hard to imagine that you can tell yourself this is more convenient.
Hey, look, this is the way I look at it. In the middle of winter, you've been home all day on a Saturday. You haven't got out and done any exercise. Almost sundown. I know. I can go move 5 wheelbarrows
There is
of
something
wood.
like
That'll be some exercise.
that is definitely exercise. All right, so Alex, just so you know, what we're doing right now is Kate's doing the final step. That's getting the wood from the front porch with this nice leather satchel situation wood carrier. It's extremely cozy.
I mean, the thermometer next to the stove says 76. Maybe a little too warm. Anyway, the number one thing that I love about this stove is standing in front of it and doing nothing. Sometimes I will just stand here and just sway back and forth, which I know sounds absurd, but it's like so calming. And so I feel like it's very rare for me to allow myself to just do nothing. But when I'm standing in front of this fire, somehow I feel like I have permission.
All right. I didn't realize until I listened to this how long Kate and Tyler spent by that wood stove. We had places to be, so I'm going to get them moving.
All right. So this is your new car.
My new, very old car. Yeah.
Okay.
2014. This is a 2014, so a now 12-year-old BMW i3. And I think this is worth mentioning. This car costs $5,000, which means it is highly problematic and may very well end up causing catastrophic failure, and I'll basically may just have to lose all the money. And I'm okay with that. I've come to terms with that. Because it may not catastrophically fail, and that'd be fun.
I like the color.
I think it's a really beautiful design. I mean, I was telling Alex that I think this is it's not really designed like a car, it's designed like a product.
So it's kind of I would call it a rust color, but it's shiny. And it's got kind of a short nose. Oh, I see what you mean. The front also looks very designed.
It does. There's nothing muscular or no imitation of feline or feminine form. That's a really common thing in automotive design.
All right. Interior-wise, this thing is unlike any other car I have been in. The door panels are this kind of charcoal gray fiber board kind of thing, which actually I think it looks really cool. And then it's got these wood panels on the top of the dash curving down into this little dish almost, and then floating above the dish is a screen.
Yeah. So this is an entirely electric car. I don't run the heat a lot because watch this.
What?
We just lost 7 miles of range by turning the heat on.
Okay, so let's just keep it cool. How does it feel? Does it have good pickup?
I will show you. It is quicker than you think. Do you want to see really quickly?
Sure. Woo! Okay. Yeah, that's got a. That had a pull.
It's fun to drive, even though it is in a lot of ways really inconvenient.
Okay, what's fun about it?
It feels like you're driving a novelty car, is what it feels like a little bit. In the same way that I think a stove is like a novelty way of heating your home, this feels like a novelty way of getting around.
Yeah, I can see that. But a car you might rely on to get you from one place to another.
Yeah, ideally.
You want to go right? Hey, Alex.
Wait, actually, the cat's might here. Let me just step out. So we're going to the sculpture trail, right?
That's the idea.
Yes.
I'm basically ready. I just have to bake some bread first.
Well, okay.
So you guys want to come in? It'll take a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not really thrilled about having to do it, but like I've realized that I have to do it. I can tell you about it.
Are you out of bread?
Yeah, I'm out of bread.
I mean, it makes sense. Kate had to move wood. All right, that's fine. We've got time. It's a Saturday afternoon.
So what have you got to do?
I just have to, I'm getting the starter out. I just have to measure out the flour, weigh the starter, mix them together in the mixer, clean off the paddle, and then I do have to let it sit for 20 minutes. And then I have to add salt, weigh out the salt and add that, and mix it again, clean off the dough hook, and then I'll be ready.
Well, I guess we can head out to the sculpture trail after you get that stuff done.
Yes, it'll be quick. It'll only take half an hour. All right. I don't want us to get too bogged down. I'm not going to play the whole half hour it took to make the bread. But during that 20 minutes when the dough had to sit, Kate and Tyler had some hard questions for me.
So why do you need to do this? When you answered the door, you said, I have to.
Yeah. It's funny, like I do talk about baking bread and how frequently I bake bread when it comes up in conversation. And people are like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, it really doesn't feel cool at this point. It really feels like an obligation to myself. Like I really feel a little grumpy about it every week when I start it. It's not like I don't really need dough at this point, but it's not like I'm kneading dough and thinking about how wholesome the experience is and how relaxing it is.
Yeah, you're not getting centered and grounded in your dough.
No, I'm probably getting grumpy as I'm doing it. I wouldn't quite say grumpy, but it's like, okay, it's a chore. It feels like a chore.
What about the moment when you've baked a loaf and you take the lid off the Dutch oven?
Yeah. It's true, when it's done baking and you take it out, it is very, very satisfying. And the house smells really good. All right.
Hi, sweetie.
Well, should we go to the sculpture trail?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you're done.
I'm done.
For now.
For now. Yeah.
And we can go. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get
I'll
going.
do
Let me
cleanup
get
when
my
we get
jacket
back.
on and stuff.
Heading out to the car at last. Sorry to hold you guys up.
So, how far, by the way?
I think
Is
it's
the sculpture trail
like about 20 miles.
Yeah. We have 16 miles of range. I didn't charge the car last night. I parked out front, and I didn't
and your car's in the shop,
Yeah.
and my car's back at my house.
Yeah.
So, and even
plus
if we
it's
could
kinda
get
late.
out there, we wouldn't even be able to get back.
yeah. If it were fully charged, it would be close. But since I have less than a half a charge in it,
Well,
yeah.
that was a nice idea.
We got some stuff done. Kate moved some wood.
Yeah.
You got your bread
It
started.
was nice to have company while I made bread.
Yeah, less of a chore.
Such
Yeah,
a
exactly.
miserable task.
It's such a miserable task.
Yeah, and for us, we're really impressed. So
That's really my goal, is to impress people. I'm impressed with your car, Tyler.
It's a nice place to sit if you're not going very far.
If you're not, we're definitely not going very
We're not
far at
going
this
anywhere.
point.
hey, what's this called?
And that was our visit to the Sculpture Trails Outdoor Museum. It's free and it's open year-round, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the summer and 9 to 5 in the winter. You should visit sometime. We probably should too. For Nice Work, I'm Alex Chambers.
You've been listening to Nice Work, a production of WFIU, WTIU, and Indiana Public Media. Find us at ipm.org.
This episode was produced and edited by Kate Young. We get production help from Danny William, Holly Wilkerson, Carl Templeton, Leo Pies, Jillian Blackburn, and Jonah Ballard.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Alan Davis. Additional music from Universal Production Music. The executive producer is Eric Bolstridge. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Nice work, Kate.
Nice work, Tyler.